Data protection and privacy teams are under more pressure than ever with new laws, AI oversight, data breaches, and the constant expectation to do more with fewer resources.
That's why TrustArc built a modern privacy and data protection management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. It unifies your tools, automates the work that slows you down, and surfaces what matters most right when you need it.
From guided quick actions to our intelligent assistant, Ask Arc, you get credible, contextual answers backed by expert research, not generic AI guesses.
Finally, privacy that works the way privacy pros work.
Learn how TrustArc helps teams move faster with confidence at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.
You're listening to Serious Privacy by TrustArc. Please welcome our hosts, Paul Breitbarth and Kay Royal.
After many weeks discussing a huge variety of topics with our guests, it is time to go back to basics. A privacy conversation about our favorite topics while sitting on a sunny back porch, drink in hand. This week, it's Kay's turn to discuss her favorite privacy topic. She can only pick one. What will she go for? Individual rights? Transparency? International transfers maybe? Or will Kay reach back to her earlier career in healthcare? Let's find out in today's episode. My name is Paul Breitbarth.
And I am Kay Royal, and welcome to Serious Privacy. So Paul and I drew straws, and I lost, so he gets to interview me. Oh, wait a minute. Should we do the unexpected question?
Well, of course. I mean, it is a podcast recording, so there should be an unexpected question, and looking at your face, it is also unexpected for you. I think they're all going to be unexpected
questions. Okay, let's see. What's on your wish list?
Vacation. Travel.
Yes.
And seeing my colleagues in real life.
Getting rid of cabin fever. I think we're both going to go with that one. All right. Take it away.
So yeah, as I said in the intro, this week and also in our next episode, we're going to talk about our favorite topics in privacy, but we are only allowed to pick one. And since you're up first, what is your absolute favorite topic in privacy that you would like to talk about today?
Oh, that's interesting, because if you ask me what aspect of privacy programs I liked best, it would be vendor management. I'm very, very passionate about vendor management, especially cloud providers and startups and different things along that line. And so I love that aspect of privacy program management. But favorite topic in privacy, I'm actually thinking back to, I teach privacy in the spring called Privacy, Big Data, and Emerging Technologies. And the topic I like to cover the most is non-consensual pornography.
And that is a privacy topic, but can we talk about that for half an hour?
Well, it goes along with bullying and recording without permission and using videos for currency within the online community, different things along that line. So I bet we could talk about it for half an hour, but I will tell you that for the 5 or 6 years I've been teaching it, this past semester was the first time that it was not just a room full of silent students for 45 minutes. They actually participated in the conversation, talking about, one of them had a friend who was a victim of non-consensual pornography. Another one had worked on prosecution cases. They were talking about the types of laws to pass in different states and which ones had good laws and bad laws. So it was actually a very engaging conversation, which is unusual. Typically, when I bring this conversation up in class, nobody wants to say a word.
No, I can imagine that, because, I mean, the question would very quickly come up. Do you have any experience yourself, or have you ever known anybody who experienced this? And I understand if students would not want to talk about such personal and intimate issues.
Absolutely. And even one year after class, one of the students came up to me afterwards, and he was a teacher, and he says he covers this topic with his students, and they have an entire program around non-consensual pornography and what to tweet, sextortion, what do they call it, sexting, things along that line. But yet he didn't speak up in class about them addressing it at his high school with an entire program for students.
Even in high school, that's pretty impressive that they actually do that, because you wouldn't. Well, I mean, it is very relevant in high schools, as all the studies show, but to actually discuss it might be even more difficult than discussing it at university.
Yeah, sexting is apparently a big issue in junior high and high schools, and so they have online privacy programs to talk to the students. So that's actually one of my favorite topics to talk about. Although nobody else likes to really talk about it, but I think it's one of these underground topics that it's one of the biggest issues that we have to deal with in privacy, but people aren't really talking about it. And it's one of the biggest ones that impacts people's lives. I mean, people have been attacked and killed, their careers ruined, they have to change their names. This is ridiculous because of non-consensual pornography, even if the pornography isn't actually them.
So do you also then go into, I mean, consent is obviously a big issue in this whole discussion, but do you also go into the whole ethical discussion when it could be, well, allowed is not the right word, I'd say, but...
You're probably thinking more of third-party doctrine and the ethical issues
I'm not
of
that
social
legalistic
media.
right now.
Okay.
It's more the... When people do it, when people make the clips or the photos voluntarily and they are onward shared by Vengeance X or they're stolen from a cloud, we've also seen that happening. Right. People use please use two-factor authentication to avoid that from happening to you. But
yes.
Do you also discuss those kind of issues and how to prevent this from happening?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, because especially, well, on the junior high and the high school side, it should simply never happen. They're minors. But on the adult side, yes, photos exchanged within a consensual relationship that are later used as either blackmail or vengeance or something along that line, absolutely talk about that. Especially them being hacked, different issues of people's phones being hacked and them being stolen from phones, even when the photos were never intended to be shared, that you have the photos and so people steal the photos off your phones, different things. It's absolutely crazy. And the worst thing is, if you go to the cops about it, there's very little they will do about it. Most cops, even nowadays, response is still, well, you shouldn't have been taking those pictures. Oh, wait, so to avoid being hit by a drunk driver, you shouldn't be driving your own car on the road. Or to avoid being raped, you shouldn't wear a skirt. I mean, where does this come from?
Yeah, that's the same argument all over again.
Exactly. So, yeah, it's a very meaty topic, one that really makes people uncomfortable, but one that if you're a victim of it, it has significant repercussions on the person. And like I said, including people getting attacked, raped, killed, because the non-consensual pornography included posting them to rape websites, saying that I have a rape fantasy, I want you to break into my house at this location, ignore my objections because I really want it to happen, and it's happened. And it's absolutely heartbreaking, traumatizing, infuriating, nauseating, every word you could possibly put to it. So yes, so thanks for that question, because now you know what one of my favorite topics to address that I'm very passionate about. I guess I'd like to have the opportunity to never discuss it because it would never happen. But I don't see that happening for a long time.
That would be nice. So apart from using two-factor authentication, which I just mentioned, what other tips do you have for people to help prevent this, or at least keep the data secure if they do want to exchange those kind of pictures or videos?
Well, multi-factor authentication, as you said, is one of the best ways of doing it. But frankly, there's not much you can do from pictures. I mean, you can try to protect your own computers, putting in encrypted file folders, different things along that to try to prevent hackers getting it from your device. But in the instance to where the person is sharing it with someone else and that person is onward sharing it, there's really nothing you can do. I mean, hopefully there would eventually become a technology to where if the person that receives it, that you put in their phone number or you put in their email address, if it leaves that phone number or email address trying to be onward, that it automatically degrades the photo. That would be fantastic. I'm sure the technology could technically be out there, but I haven't seen or heard of it yet. So the other thing is to just make sure that we have the right laws in place to prosecute against it, and that cops and prosecutors are actually willing to do so. One of the biggest problems is that most of the laws that address non-consensual pornography, which, by the way, we haven't called it revenge porn, but that's more commonly what it's called. But most of the laws that address non-consensual pornography, they're based on the intent to harm someone. And in many cases, it's not being shared with the intent to harm someone.
No, it's more like, look what I've got.
Yeah. Or it's used as currency. There are websites that are dedicated to rape scenarios, and so they absolutely know that the person did not consent to it, because that's part of non-consensual pornography, is recording rapes and attacks and uploading it to these websites. And in that case, you usually need federal authorities to be willing and able to go after the people running the websites.
It's actually a pretty big topic here in Europe as well. There is a tech journalist here in the Netherlands who has done a lot of research into revenge porn or non-consensual pornography, and also was responsible for some of those websites being taken down. He went undercover, infiltrated in some of the networks, saw the most horrible things, but was able to report on it and get the websites down and the people behind it prosecuted. So he did a really good job there. But also in the debate, especially related to sexting, because people here recognize that it has and that it isn't going away.
Right.
One of the recommendations that are provided is, if you want to do this, then at least make sure that everything that is recognizable about you is not in the picture. So take out your head.
Right.
Only take the pictures from the neck down so that you are less recognizable. Take away or scratch out on the picture any tattoos or piercings that you may have that may be very recognizable. And also in the background, things that may be very recognizable about your house or the place where you live, so that they are not visible. So that if a picture spreads involuntarily, it doesn't automatically come back to you and come back to haunt you and to harm you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, when you had asked that question, I was going towards, can you prevent the spread of it? But you're right. If you can't, what steps can you take to try to make you not recognizable? But there is the flip side of it, to where people have been victims of non-consensual porn where it's not their body. Their head has been mapped onto someone else's naked body or pieces of a naked body. And that starts getting really complicated. One of the other suggestions that have been made, especially when it comes to having the pictures taken down online through social media, is to copyright the photos. Because a lot of the pushback on social media, and this is getting to be much, much better, but a lot of the pushback was, well, you don't own the photo. Can you prove you're the owner of this photo? And if you're the owner of the photo, we can take it down. Well, in order to register a trademark or a copyright on a photo, you have to submit the photo to public records, which means then your photos are publicly available, because that's the only way to register a copy. So the solution is not much better than the problem on that one.
No, because it would basically mean that you need to publish your pictures for everybody to see, or at least somewhere in the public domain.
Right.
But couldn't they create some sort of public domain-like website where only you can see the pictures?
Not for copyright registration. That kind of sucks. You would think that there would be a way that you could modify that to be able to work on it, but there's not really meaty solutions up here. I mean, there's a lot of different solutions being tried. Nothing is truly effective, but once you start putting all the efforts together, you can try to mitigate the damage. But unfortunately, women, and it's overwhelmingly women that are victims of it, unfortunately, women usually wind up having to change their names and completely get away from the life that they had before, which is more sad than you can possibly imagine.
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting because the university to which I belong, Maastricht University, actually earlier today published a blog on copyright protection of photographs. And this is about paparazzo photos, so not about revenge
Right.
pornography. But in essence, the discussion is the same, because it is an interference with the right to privacy, the right to a private life under European law. And based on European case law, I will link to the blog in our show notes, but based on European case law, a picture can get copyright protection if it is the author's own intellectual creation. So there needs to be some thought in it, put into
Right.
it. It can't just be click and be done with it. And it also needs to reflect the author's personality, the personal touch, which is the result of free and creative choices, according to standing case law. But there is also, on the reverse side, very clear that any picture, especially if the individual is not aware, that it needs to respect the private and family life of the individual in the pictures.
Right.
And this is a case that was brought before the courts by Princess Caroline von Hanover, which is one of the princesses from Monaco, to fight against paparazzi. And it was groundbreaking case law at the time. But I can imagine that such case law could also be used to fight revenge porn, with the only disadvantage that it will take years to get a case like this before the courts.
Right, exactly. And the fact that in many cases the reparation for it is remove the photos. That's mainly what they're looking for. Now, when they're on the sites where they've been posted saying, they want to be gang raped or they have a rape fantasy, they also want safety. They want all their information removed from that as well. Perhaps in the end, someone that has destroyed their life, they would actually like to have financial reparation as well. That's not inconceivable. But in many cases, it's safety.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And the right to private life.
So what about civil action? Is that an option under U.S. law?
It is an option under U.S. law, but it's really hard to get there. Even though it has less of a burden of proof than criminal prosecution does, you still have to be able to show harm and what you're seeking and how they can repair. But it's not something that you see a lot of cases about, because it's really hard for the people whose lives are being destroyed to go forth into a court and sue the person doing it. And in many cases, it goes way beyond the initial person doing it. If it's something that's been shared on social media or something that's been shared on websites or in whatever networks that people might be in where they use these pictures as currency, or as games, it's a competition. How many naked pictures can you find, whatever. You'd have to sue how many thousands and thousands of people to be able to get the photos removed from those types of networks. And so it's very discouraging to victims to hear, yes, I can sue the one person that I sent the picture to who shared it to other people, and now I have this horrible, you can't sue on privacy. Realize that, because you have to show a harm. But if they can show a harm and it's hard to sue that one person, yes, maybe that can happen if it's that limited of an interaction. But once it goes beyond that, it's hard to see where a civil case would actually do any good. And it's hard for them to see where a civil case would do any good. But of course, we do encourage that. There are lawyers who actually help pro bono. And there have been significant decisions for millions of dollars, but they're not common.
What else do you discuss with your students when you talk about this?
Oh, when we talk about non-consensual pornography, you've hit on pretty much all the issues. We also talk about state law and what state laws are in place and what states are doing about it here in the U.S. We talk internationally about how it's being addressed. The UK is actually pretty strong in it as well. Europe is actually a fantastic forum to try to make it better. Yeah, that's about it. It's a very uncomfortable conversation with law students, I have to say.
It is, but it is an important one, as you rightfully say so. There's actually, in Norway, they made a television series about this, and it was just broadcast on the BBC a couple of months ago. It is called Nudes, and it's 3 series of 3 or 4 episodes where they follow one specific case, 3 people that fell victim to non-consensual pornography, somebody who was filmed while having sex by some friends and that video spread, and someone else who was wrongly accused of spreading pictures, but it shows very much the struggle from multiple angles also, but also to some extent the legal discussion that is going on and how difficult indeed it is to make sure that you get your right, that you get your compensation. And it also shows the internal struggle, the emotional struggle, and the burden it puts on people.
Oh, absolutely. And I can link to some of the things that I provide the students. There is a wonderful TED Talk by Darieth Chisholm. So it's 10 minutes. It's really only the first 3 minutes that I tell the children tell the law students that they need to listen to. There was actually, I'm looking up some of the stories that I've shared with the cases. So there was a wonderful case in South Korea because the owner of a South Korean revenge porn site was jailed for 4 years. There were some more recent stories about it, but I don't have that one pulled up, but I can share some of it. But I was looking for what are some of we talk about social media and how social media can actually be a friend in this, and how some of the social media companies have stepped up to assist victims with this now without making them run through, the metal gauntlet as to what they need to prove. Some of the other laws that help that people are able to use is child pornography, unlawful surveillance, dissemination of video and images obtained through unlawful surveillance, aggravated harassment, domestic violence, cyber stalking, stalking in general, extortion, and then, of course, we've talked about the hacking and the copyright. So there's a lot of different ways they can try to seek.
So from the legal perspective as such, it's also a very interesting topic because you can have so many angles as part of a debate on how to solve this.
Yes, and I have to admit that the law firms and the attorneys that have stepped forward to help victims of non-consensual pornography, hats off to them. I mean, seriously, hats off to them. That's a lot of work, and they're doing good work.
Absolutely. Hear, hear.
Happier
topics. This is the topic that you are clearly very passionate about. Maybe let's also talk about the other more legal one that you mentioned, vendor management.
Yes.
Why in the world would somebody be passionate about vendor management, about contract over contract over contract over contract, looking at cloud locations and things like that, security requirements? Why?
Well, and I know you're asking that facetiously, so I love that. So,
well, you hear my surprise.
Yeah, right. Did I hear that sarcasm in there? So vendor management has always been a fascinating topic, and I've been writing and speaking on it pretty much as long as I've been in privacy. I started back in the days when people were against cloud providers. And so at the time, vendors were the underdog. And so many privacy experts and legal experts were telling companies not to use cloud providers, how very unsecure it is, how very bad it is to go that route. My thought was always, but they have an expertise that we don't. And it's much better for me to hire someone that has expertise to do something than it is for me to try to create it on my own. And technically, how could it be done other than cloud services in many, many cases? Unless they're providing a physical thing to you, you're buying a product, a service is probably almost always delivered over the cloud.
At least in the last 10 years.
Yeah, for a B2B relationship, exactly. And the ones that previously would have had to be in person aren't the kind that contribute to the age that we're in, the digital age and how things work. So it started at first being the underdog. I took the unpopular opinion. I supported cloud providers. I was very active in what kind of due diligence should you do over cloud providers. Now that's pretty much all we have and what people are looking for. But still, and the Ponemon Institute just came out with their report on it. I was actually just reading it. I'll see if I can't pull it up as we're talking, but we can absolutely provide the link to it in there. But the thing that gets me is that vendors are still probably the least controlled aspect of a company's privacy program. They don't have the resources to put towards vendor management, but yet all the statistics show that most of the breaches come through third parties. It's not through the company itself, it's through a third party in some way. And most companies are a vendor to another business in some way. So that probably ties into it as well. Even if you are a provider, you have your own providers to yourself. But it's interesting that this is still, I think the statistics that came out on it were something like a third or less of companies would actually state that they have a successful or a valid vendor oversight program. And the ones that do, I would say there's even less percentage, because what they might be considering effective is we perform due diligence at the beginning of a contract or before we hire a vendor, not the ongoing due diligence that you need to do for a vendor. I mean, quite often services expand, or the scope of services that you initiated or reviewed, that expands. IT says, oh, wait, we use this vendor. Let's use them for 10 other things. I'm not just picking on IT. It's other departments as well. Oh, we already use this vendor, so it's okay to use them for this X number of other services. And it's not. You might be using additional personal information or different routes of communication or service provision that bring in an exponential amount of risks back to it from what they were originally assessed for. One of the other big problems I find is that year after year after year, the person using that vendor is no longer the person using that vendor. You have a marketing person who likes a particular type of database provider, and then they move on, or they move to a different position or a different company, and nobody else likes that service. They have another service they like. So then you have this black hole of data sitting out there that nobody is supporting, but it's just sitting there waiting to explode on you. So there's a lot of nuances to vendor management that really just get my privacy heart ticking.
So going through contract over contract over contract, but to find out the important issues and the nitty-gritty detail. And that is often what running a privacy program will be about, is making sure that all those nitty-gritty details are taken care of. Because if you don't care about those details, who else in the organization will?
Right. And that's true. Nobody will care about it more than you will. But you care about using the service. You don't care usually so much about how secure or private that service is. You just want to use it because it's convenient and it's good and it gives you the benefits you want. And I'm using you, but you know what I mean there.
So what about the chain of custody under US law? I mean, under the GDPR, it's pretty clear. The data controller remains responsible for the data, even if it's used by the subprocessor of the subprocessor of their processor. And they actually also need to be aware of that, who that subprocessor of the subprocessor of their processor is, and give permission for it, for the data to flow there.
And nobody wants to do that.
Well, nobody is aware that how to do that.
Right.
I mean, even if people use us and we tell them that we use a cloud service to store their data and that we have assessed them, but lots of companies also have no idea that we have told them, because we do, but that we have told them that we are using a cloud service provider as well, and they might use another storage facility again. So it is important, but that is probably one of the reasons why I'm not so fond about vendor management, because there are so many contracts that you should read if you want to do it right that takes forever and ever.
Yeah, that is true. And contracts is my least favorite part of privacy. So if you were to ask that, I'd say, oh, I hate contracts. So how do you...
This doesn't make sense, Kay. You don't like contracts, but you love vendor management.
Yes.
It's very contradictory.
I like the detective part of vendor management, the finding out what they do, where does their data go, what kind of controls do they have in place, assessing them on the correct cadence based on the risk of the data that they have, taking that risk approach to assessment. But yes, contracts is a necessary evil part of that. And if you are doing vendor management and you like the part that I like, but you don't like contracts, make sure you partner with someone in the company that does like contracts, and that way y'all can work together. I mean, one of the places that I worked as privacy counsel was that we had, and typically there is someone in a company that is over contracts. we worked closely enough together. Yes, I was responsible for the privacy part of the contract, but she was responsible for making sure that what contracts were being put in place didn't have a privacy element, even if it wasn't tagged for personal information. And so it's making sure that you are on good relations with the people that either it's procurement or sourcing or someone in the company or the contracts department that understand privacy and can elevate those issues to you. Of course, there's usually very clear vendors that are personal information. We're a customer relationship management software kind of thing. But there's a lot of other vendors that have it that people don't think about. I mean, clearly they think about it for HR vendors, but there's a lot of other vendors that touch personal information that unless someone's educated on privacy issues, it doesn't occur to them, oh, this is a privacy issue.
That's true. But back to the original question.
What was that?
The chain of command or the chain of custody on data, does that exist in the US as well?
Not to the extent that it does in Europe. We're starting to get more positive. I mean, clearly HIPAA has its business associates, and now thanks to high tech, it has the downstream business associate requirement. So you have that. FERPA, most people, is education, don't even think about. They actually do have a provision for vendors as well. Now you have the CCPA that has their service provider vendor. And if the new CPRA actually does get passed on the ballot initiative, they have a new definition of contractor, pretty much the same thing. But there's the flow down provision. So it's the continual flow down provisions. And how does that make it up to a company? The problem is once you get past second or third layer, nobody can keep tracking the rest of them. Because it just keeps going down and down and down and down. And so are you really responsible for a vendor 20 layers down?
Well, officially under EU law, yes. But how do you actually manage that? That makes it very complex. But I'm yet to see cases where this will actually be an issue. But I don't rule out that at some point we will see those.
Right. It has to be on a practical level because as you can imagine, once you start getting down to that many layers, and it could be a big company that's 20 layers down, it could be a very small individual that's 20 layers down. Do they even have visibility upstream to what's necessary for them to do? And at what point do the nuances of the protections get lost? I mean, under HIPAA, the protections that flow down are the protections that attach to the data. Well, once you're 5, 6, 7 contracts down, is it still services that are attaching to the data? Or is it all these other protections that people have placed on it? Or has a particular requirement for the data protection that you required been lost? So it's really
that's
interesting.
True. At the same time, that's also a similar discussion we have with international transfers, of course.
Right.
A friend of mine, when we teach together, she always describes international transfers under EU law as a bubble placed around the data that offers all the protection under GDPR. And that bubble flows around the world and it travels with the data to wherever the data is going to, but all the protections stay the same. And that should basically be the same for data flowing from the data controller to a processor, to a subprocessor. Also, then those protections should, in principle, continue to be the same because that is the expectation that was created by the data controller, right, by the company when they collected the data in the first place.
Exactly. And so they think they've done the right thing and it's just not there yet. It's not still there. It didn't travel with them. It got lost in translation. I mean, is this something that blockchain would be good for? I don't know. I have to admit, blockchain is not one of my favorite topics. Don't start asking me questions about blockchain.
It isn't a favorite topic of mine either. I very much like the diagram that has a box with a question at the top. Do you need blockchain? And then only one choice arrow down. No.
I can agree with that one. And I have a friend that just got her PhD, so still very, very proud of her. She was one of my favorite law students. She's in Canada, and her specialty is blockchain. And I'm like, I got nothing.
I mean, in some future date, I think the technology might be something that can help privacy, but at this moment, it's not GDPR compliant because you cannot change anything and you cannot erase anything. There is no real data controller. There is no real transparency. So for me, from the EU perspective, it just doesn't work yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And on that note, Kay, I think we've discussed your two favorite privacy topics. One from the really legal perspective and one more from the societal perspective. I'll be up next.
I know. I'm excited for that one.
So if you want to hear that, or if you like our series, please do tell your friends and colleagues about us. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app, then you certainly will automatically hear about my passionate topics. And should you have any questions or suggestions, please reach out to us via seriousprivacy@trustarc.com or via Twitter at @podcastprivacy. You will find Kay on Twitter as Heart of Privacy and myself as Europol B. Thank you again for listening to Serious Privacy. Until our next episode, goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
That was Serious Privacy.
If you're a data protection or privacy professional, you already know the pressure. Non-stop regulatory change, AI oversight, internal demands, and the expectation to somehow stay ahead of it all. And the old patchwork of tools just isn't cutting it anymore.
No, that's why TrustArc created a modern privacy management platform powered by Arc Intelligence. The TrustArc platform brings your workflows, evidence, research, tasks, and applications all together in one unified and intelligent workspace so you don't waste time digging, clicking, or context switching.
With Ask Arc, your privacy assistant, you can ask plain language questions about laws, jurisdictions, or even your own program data and get credible, cited answers based on NIMBY research and more than 1,000 global laws. It's explainable, transparent, and purpose-built for data protection and privacy.
So if you need to add a vendor, create a cookie banner, or start an assessment, quick actions take formally complex tasks, turn them into bite-sized guided workflows to save you time.
It's a platform that thinks like you, works like you, and helps you move faster with confidence, whether you're a seasoned DPO or you're just getting started.
See how modern privacy gets done. Explore Arc at trustarc.com/serious-privacy. That's trustarc.com/serious-privacy.